As you may know, I'm a director at C.A.R, and I have responsibility for legislative committee. I am on that committee. So I report back to our region with anything that's discussed within that committee. But I also had an opportunity to attend Gov Hutchinson's sessions, which is always full of good information and changes that are coming in the law. So here, I will go through all these changes. I took copious notes and rewrote them all so that I would be able to present it to you in such a way that it's easy to grasp the topic. There are some disclosure laws. These laws have been approved by the House or the Senate in California, and now they are sitting on the governor's desk for his signature. He's supposed to sign these into the law on October 14th. So Gov said that, in his opinion, 90% of what is being presented here will be signed by the governor. They were that sure. So here it goes. AB 1280. This is a change to the NHD statement. This law has been signed currently. There are two boxes for fire zones. The current forms have two boxes. One says very high fire, and if this is checked, a fire hardening form will be required. And the other one is wildland fire. If this is checked, then the state has jurisdiction, and it is either high fire or moderate fire. If high fire, then you have to call your NHD rep to see what you need to do, or the fire department. So this is what's happening now. The new form, what the change is that it will have either a yes or a no box. This will go into effect on January 1st of 24. If yes is checked, then the property is in high fire zone. CAL FIRE will map local fire responsibility areas. Cities do not have an ordinance for defensible space. On the third page of the fire hardening form, I believe that is, I'm not clear on which form that is. It could be NHD or fire. I think it's the fire hardening form. The seller does not have to check any boxes. This is all according to Gov. So changes in the NHD statement first. Secondly, AB 968. This is a disclosure by house flippers. This is a new law, and it will go into effect on July 1st of 24. If you sell, If you sell a house within 18 months of purchase, then you're considered a flipper. And you have to disclose the following: all new renovation, modifications, repairs where the cost is more than $500, or if you use the contractor, would have to be reported. And they should provide the buyer with all permits or provide the list of contractors they have used. Next is AB 225. This is the environmental booklet, which will be expanded. So the environmental hazard booklet is going to be expanded. This is not signed yet, and don't know if it will be, because it requires dollars for someone to add. In essence, they want to add 3 chapters to the environmental booklet, and those are sea level rises, climate change, and wildfires. It was suggested that currently, when you're dealing with buyers, give them the following booklets: state, buyers and sellers, wildfire advisory, and residential environmental hazards, so that you are covered in terms of informing your client. And what I'm about to discuss are 4 laws that have not been signed. However, Gov thinks that they will be signed. One is AB 12, security deposits. So there is a change in the security deposit requirements. I don't know why, Alvo, I have you on my screen. Robert. Okay, let's continue. So there is a change in the security deposit requirements. Currently, the security deposit for an unfurnished unit is twice the monthly rent amount, and for an unfurnished one is twice the monthly rent amount. And for a furnished unit, it's 3 times that. Effective July 1st of 24, the security deposit will be the equivalent of 1 month's rent. And this is not going to be retroactive. So If you're going to rent out your rental units or whatever, and right now you can collect twice the rent, do it. But once it comes to July 1st, you will not be able to do that. Now, landlords who do not have more than 4 units are exempt from this requirement. However, if a landlord who does not own more than 4 units has a tenant that is serving in the U.S. Armed Forces, then they cannot collect more than 1 month's security deposit from that tenant. SB 567. This is a Tenant Protection Act, or in other words, California rent control. And it will go into effect on April 1st of 24. And this is what it is. This applies to 2 or more units and properties that are 15 years or older. You're restricted on rent increases and basis for eviction. Currently, the maximum rent increases are as follows. In San Diego County, it's 10%. In Riverside and San Bernardino, it's 9.6%. In LA and Orange County, it's 8.8%, and everywhere else is 9.2%. Secondly, so if you increase the rent by, add more than those percentages that I just mentioned, then you will have to pay a relocation fee to the tenant. Secondly, you need to have just cause for eviction to evict a tenant. For example, if the tenant does not pay their rent, or they cause a nuisance at the property that they live in, and they violate the terms of their contract, then you can have just cause to evict them. However, if a tenant has not violated the terms of their contract and they haven't been a nuisance or anything like that, the only way that the landlord can have that tenant evicted is as follows. If the landlord wants to move in himself or herself, or one of their children or their parents want to move in, this does not apply to their cousins, sisters, or brothers. This is just the immediate family only. They can, in that case, they can evict that tenant. Or if they need to do extensive renovations, or that they want to take the house completely off the rental market. Now, if the owner wants to move in, by the way, this is for owners that have 25% or more ownership in a property. The eviction notice must identify the person moving in, the relationship of that person to the landlord, can't be anyone that's already living in that building. And if there are already other vacancies in the building, you cannot evict the tenant from their current unit. And owner has to move in within 90 days of tenant's eviction date. And the owner or their immediate family that's moving into that unit, they have to stay there for at least 12 months. In terms of if substantial renovations are needed, the work on the property has to be so significant that the property is inhabitable for 30 days. They have to provide what work needs to be done, when will it start, who will do the renovations work, etc. So a lot of details to the tenant bed. And once it's remodeled, you have to give the tenant who evicted that unit the opportunity to move back if they choose to do so. Now, landlords who violate these rules, here's the penalties for it. And please pay very close attention to this. This is very significant. First of all, the tenant has the right to come back. Secondly, the tenant has the right to sue the landlord. And the tenant has the right to sue for attorney's fees. And the tenant can receive triple damages. Well, let me give you an example. Let's say a tenant was in a unit and paying $2,000 a month. Now they have moved somewhere else and they're paying $2,300 a month. That tenant can request the landlord to pay the difference in rent, which is now $300 a month, times 12 for 1 year. And then the tenant can say, oh, by the way, I was going to stay at your place for another 10 years. So that 300 times 12 is now multiplied by 10 years. That's 36,000 right there. And then triple that amount, which is 108,000. This number can be astronomical in some cases. So landlords have to be extremely cautious and very careful in terms of how they're dealing with these kinds of situations, because they could be sued for other damages, also for moving expenses and so forth. So be very careful. Again, this law will go into effect July 1st of 24. Now, AB 1317, this is unbundling of parking costs from rental units. This applies to apartment buildings with 16 or more units where tenants have a parking spot. The landlord has to separate the parking fee from the rent amount, which means that they need two rental agreements, one for the parking spot and one for the rental unit. If the tenant doesn't pay their parking fee, then they cannot park there, but you cannot evict them. So this is a pilot project, by the way, and it will be effective January 1st of 24. AB 1345 goes into effect on January 1st of 24. There is a brokerage firm, I believe out of Florida, by the name of MV Realty, who targets the elderly or people who do not speak English. Basically, what they do is they contact these individuals and they get their listing in exchange for a couple $1,000s or a few $1,000s. And it's a 40-year listing on their property. And they also put a lien on the property. So this poor person who has committed to a 40-year listing is basically tied with these guys. In California, non-competitive agreements are prohibited, and the maximum listing period is 24 months with no automatic renewal. It can be extended for 12 months, and it cannot be recorded against the property. Now, if anybody violates this rule, they will lose their license. As simple as that. Remote online notaries, I am sure that you all know that other states were offering that kind of service. California was not. Now, California has come up with a new law that will allow for remote online notaries in California. AB 505, insurance. This will allow for the California Fair Plan to be extended to commercial properties effective July 1st of 24. Now, two very important things that I want to mention at the end, and those are the fact that the legislature has authorized for ACA 1 and ACA 13 to go on the ballot. What is ACA 13? In 1978, Prop 13 was passed by 62% vote, and it limits the increase of property taxes. It says any local government that wants to pass any special taxes has to get a 2/3 vote. The California Supreme Court decided that private initiatives through signatures that are put on the ballot can only have a majority vote of 50% plus one, or a simple majority, like Measure ULA that passed in Los Angeles. Now, California Business Roundtable has a measure on the ballot that says an increase in taxes has to have a 2/3 vote. If this passes, guess what will happen? ULA will go away. It will make ULA null and void, which would be fantastic. By the way, C.A.R opposes ACA 13 because it can affect Prop 13 and the benefits that Prop 13 offers to property owners. ACA 1, this is to pay for certain taxes such as school bonds, etc., and it says it should be reduced to 55% and not a 2/3 vote. Again, C.A.R opposes this. I know this was all fast, but I just wanted to give you a glimpse into all the new laws that will most potentially be signed by the governor and become effective next year. We will review them again, but one of the things that Gov mentioned is that as soon as governor signs these into the law, then we will receive an email from our legal at C.A.R to enlighten us about what new laws are going into effect next year. That's all I have. Are there any questions about anything that I can answer, that is? All right, I don't see any hands up. So at this time, I would like to ask our President-elect, SEVAK SOHRABIAN, to do an economic market update for us. Thank you. And SEVAK, it's all yours.
Thank you, Carmen. I appreciate that. I'm going to share my screen. All right. You guys see my screen all right? My presentation screen? Yes?
Yeah.
No?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right, well,
Yes.
I am going to try to cover a couple of things that are data related. One will be a market update, and which was shared with us by Jordan Levine, the Senior VP and Chief Economist for C.A.R. And then, if time allows, I will have a quick observation on something else, which is still data-driven, but I think it's worth every second if we spend time thinking about this. That is emotional speculation versus reality, the topic that I think once we discuss, you'll see value in it. First of all, as C.A.R. mentioned to us in their forecast, currently, where we are right now, they see the following strengths: that market is not crashing, and prices are rising, economy continues to expand, and homeownership is still very much a desired and valuable thing amongst people. There are still people who want to buy property regardless of what the interest rates are. The weaknesses, on the other hand, are affordability and homeownership shrinking. We are at a very low percentage segment of our population who can afford properties in California. Interest rates are expected to remain elevated. By that, we don't mean that they're going to be in the 7 or 8%ers. We are talking about not going way below 6.5 or something by the end of the year, okay? And the challenges that our industry is facing are the fact that recession is not yet ruled out, okay? As much as it doesn't seem to be a factor, but it is not completely taken off our focus. Supply remains very limiting these days. You will see that shortly in a slide. And real estate industry is changing. It's changing in many facets, not only laws and legislations, but also industry practices. So first, the elephant in the room as far as the economy is concerned is the interest rates and the inflation. The inflation has really come down considerably since a year and a couple of months ago. That was at 8.9%. We ended close to 3.7% June of this year. And that's a good significant change. But the last mile of the inflation, as it's so called, the movement is tougher. Ask a marathon runner. It is probably the last 100 meters that they can barely stand. That's the case with inflation reduction actions. So where the target is for the Fed around 2%, and we were around 3.7 in June. At 1.7% further reduction seems to be a bigger challenge than what we've accomplished so far. Rates are likely to remain elevated. We ended averages of September at 7.19%, and we will see probably a little bit dip here, a little bit increase there. It will move depending on the optics of the economic news, but it is not going to go down to like 6.5 or 6% by the end of the year. Now it is going to take more time to get there. But let's be honest, it's a matter of perspective. You take a look at the interest rate in the last, that is 29 plus 23, that's 52 years span. The gray areas are the areas that the interest rate for 30-year mortgage has been above 6%. So being below 6% is not the norm in a long view that we have. And I think that's something for us to keep reminding ourselves as well as our clients. The economy is running strongly, but the engine is running out of gas. And the engine is referred to as the consumer segment. Consumers are buying more merchandise than they can afford. Therefore, this chart that you're looking is their credit card debt. That has been going up and up. It is going to come to a point that the consumer is going to feel uncomfortable adding to their credit card balances, and we are almost there, okay? And with the consumers changing their purchasing habits, that will have obviously a further effect on inflation, and hopefully we'll see it move further down from the 3.7 or so that we saw at the end of June. Currently, California mortgage delinquency rate is way below its averages. We all know that there's plenty of equity that homeowners have, and so it will be unlikely for them to let go of that equity by being delinquent. The average, as you can see, is a 4.2% of the borrowers being delinquent, where we ended the second quarter of 2023 was at 2.24, almost at 50% below the average of delinquency rate. So people are making their payments all right. Now, as far as supply constraints are concerned, these three charts will tell you the story. If you look at the California population from 88 to 22, we went from 28 million to 39 million people, about 11 million increase. During almost similar time period, we went from 13 million jobs to 18 million jobs, which means that 5 million more jobs were created for that 11 million total population increase. So we've been doing great. As far as people are concerned, they are making the money, they can pay for their livelihood and so forth, so on, considering the increase in population and all that. However, when you look at the California residential construction activity, in 1988, there were 256,000 construction projects that required permits and went through a permit project. And in 22, we are at 130,000. That should tell us clearly as to where the supply problem is. We are just not equipped handling the increasing population that we've had in California. We are way below. We should be somewhere right around 180, 175,000 per year. We are at 130,000. We were at 130,000 for 22. Okay. Now, industry is changing in many different facets. Teams, industry practices. We see more and more team structures out there. We see DRE emphasizing supervision more and more. There are more audits taking place. We see MLS issues, clear cooperation issues, and so forth that affect the MLS, broker compensation for cooperative brokers, an MLS issue. And then there are the lawsuits. There is a Department of Justice scrutiny of the industry. So these are challenges that are there, and we are going through them. Some of them, like the lawsuits, are gonna start showing us what direction we might be going starting October. One of the more major lawsuits is due to be heard in October. Of course, there's a great likelihood of appeals and years of continuation, but at least we will start seeing things taking shape slowly. Now, a potential supply source that we are all hopeful is legislation increasing capital gains threshold. If you look at state of California property ownership right now, there are total owned households of 7,513,000 and change in California who are residential property owners. Of that number, 2,743,000 and change are currently in an equity position that if they decide to sell, they'll be affected by the current capital gains threshold of $250,000 and $500,000 for a couple. So if we are successful, hopefully as an industry, to promote and accomplish legislation increasing capital gains threshold to 500,000 and $1 million, that will obviously open up the gateways to this 2,743,000 households who would be able to sell their property, take advantage of the increased capital gain threshold, and that will begin promoting more activity. As we all know, there are still more buyers out there than we have supplies, and this would be one strong supply source, hopefully once it gets accomplished. So with that, we get to the forecast summary that was given to us. Single-family homes, the sales, if you look at the last three columns, 2022, 23 projection, and 24 forecast. We have 342,000 transactions in 22. 23 is projected to close at 266,000. So that is a drop of 22% compared to the year before. In other words, if an average agent was doing 5 transactions a year in 22, let's say, they are doing 4 transactions this year. They have their production has been affected by that percentage. The 2024 forecast, however, as you can see, it goes from 23 of 266,000 to a forecast of 327,000, which is an increase of almost 23%. So those who lost that one sale are expected to gain that one sale back in 24, all right? The median prices are going up. Although you have in the percentage change, you look at that row, for 2023, projection is a loss of median price by 1.5%. But you look at LA County, we are not affected by the same dynamics that they are affected in Northern California. So I think in LA County, it is safe to say that we've had a gain even in 2023. 24 is expected 860,000 statewide median price, which is a 6.2% increase. We talked about the affordability index. That's a challenge. We are at 17% of our population being able to afford a median price home in the state of California. That is one of the lowest that we have seen ever. Okay. And the expected interest rate averages for 2024 is around 6%, and which will be a welcome change that hopefully will entice some of the people who are sitting on mortgages of 4 to 6% range think that, all right, at 6%, I can probably sell my property and go after a replacement property. I can do this, which is gonna, again, give us some more transactions, which is already worked in the forecast of the numbers that you see in the right column. So that is the bottom line summary of what we can anticipate if we do not have any major catastrophic changes, whether natural or social, political, or what have you. If things continue as they are right now, I think we can all anticipate a more positive 24 coming our way. All right. Now I would like to switch the topic to something totally different. And that's emotional speculation versus reality. Okay. Life events, we know that they distort our view of reality. I'm sure that if you guys think back yourself, you can recall one of those events for yourself, that when you were going through such an event, you were thinking either the sky is falling, or opposite, depending on what the event was, that everything is just fantastic. And the fact is that property owners and property buyers go through the same experience as well. Now, with that in mind, let's take a look at what LA median residential prices have been for over 52 years. Sorry, this is a different graph. This is and 33 years. This is at 33 years LA Metro median residential prices sold. Okay, as you can see, in the long run, it's a straight up climb. Where we are today, the last data, May 23, it's about 800,000. The first data, January 90, 200,000. That's 4 times the value. All right, 4 times the value in 33 years. So you double, you go 100% of the beginning value every 7 years, almost 8 years. Okay. But life happened during this time. It wasn't just, hey, we're selling real estate. This is when the Iraq's invasion of Kuwait happened. This was the first war we experienced, major war that we experienced after Vietnam. You remember the feelings that we had, the emotions that we had those days? Oh my God, we are going into war. What's going to happen? Well, nothing happened to property prices in LA County. This is when Northridge earthquake happened. Nothing happened to prices. I remember this experience vividly because our condo was damaged severely, and I thought that was the end of life as I knew it. When it comes to property values, this is when the dot-com bubble happened. Remember the dot-com bubble? Stock market took a nose down. Property values. This is when 9/11 happened. 9/11. Property values didn't really change much. Subprime loans, different story. This is when they happened. It was directly affecting the loan and the real estate mortgage industry. And as a matter of fact, if you look at where we were at the high end, it was about $580,000. By the time that we reached $580,000 or close, that was 2020. So for 13 years, it affected us. All right, for 13 years. Sorry, my apologies. This is when the cryptocurrency crash happened. Property values went up. The COVID and our interest rate policies today. So in long run, property values have been going up regardless of life events, other than this one exact, this was the silver bullet, the subprime loans. That slowed us down. But if you look at every other event that we went through as people, I remember the emotional impact of every one of these. And what I took out of that was the sky's falling every single time. 9/11, I didn't know what's going to happen next day. So think about that and remind yourself, as well as your clients who are sitting there and saying, I'm expecting something to change. I'm expecting something to bring down prices. Prices are directly related to supply and demand. None of these life-changing events really changed much when it came to real estate prices. Okay? All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope you took something from it. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Thank you, SEVAK. Did an outstanding job. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Just wanted to add one thing. Jordan Levine, who's the SVP and our senior economist at C.A.R, some of you have met him. He talked about the brother-in-law effect. You know, every one of us has a family member who's a chief economist somewhere, or, you know, they think they know everything about the market and so forth. And when you go and look at properties, they always have an opinion that's never in line with yours, by the way. And they talk you out of buying something because they think the market will crash, the houses will come down in price and so forth. I certainly have experienced that with some clients. Jordan's message was, don't listen to your brother-in-law, and encourage your clients to pay attention and look at the numbers. I mean, the numbers do not lie. You know, the prices are going up year after year. Whether the interest rates are 6%, they're going to be 7%, or they will drop down to 5%. The reality is that you still need a house. You need to make a sound financial investment and put your money where it will grow, because historically housing prices have gone up at least 6% a year. So regardless of everything else that happened, and SEVAK's chart is very telling in terms of life events that we've all experienced, investing in housing is still a very good strategy, and it's a way to build generational wealth. There's no question about it. Interest rates have gone up. They will go down at some point, and they can be refinanced. So, educate your clients on that. And for those who are sitting on the fence and they don't know if should pull the trigger or not, they should, think about this very seriously. And I wanted to bring one point up with all of you, given what I covered in terms of changes in the law, which some of them are really affecting property rights. I think it would behoove all of you to become very engaged in what's happening in our industry, in our market. Pay attention. When it comes time to voting, get out there at the ballot box and do vote, so that measures like ULA don't get an opportunity to become the law, which is affecting a lot of people. Point is that get engaged, especially in your local jurisdiction. If there's something that's going on within your own city, go to the city council, go speak up your mind, educate yourself, educate your clients, but be active and be proactive. And one ask that I have of you, something like making changes in increasing the capital gains for people in order to move that needle and increase the supply. And this talk has been going on for a long time. It takes a lot of effort and time. And by effort, I mean, it takes money in order to fight these things. So my ask is this: for those of you who have not contributed to REF, please consider doing so. The minimum amount is $20. That's 3 cups of coffee at Starbucks. If you can deny yourself 3 cups of coffee or a sandwich and a Coke, you can afford to pay the $20. That will go a long way. And I would so appreciate getting participation from at least all of you who are on this call, if not more people. With that,